Hello, it's Joanna Toch here from Family Law Cafe for the Family Law Cafe podcast. Today I have with me Stephanie Camilleri. She is the ADHD Advocate. She's going to explain exactly what that means. Stephanie, firstly, tell us about you and what you do.
Okay, where do I start? This could take a while, so do try and give me a boundary here. But so, yes, I'm Stephanie. I personally have ADHD. And I didn't know that until my eldest daughter was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 5. And that was quite a journey. And because of that journey, because there was not much understanding around ADHD, at the time we were told that she had sensory processing disorder. You know, we got her bouncing on balls, occupational therapy for like a year. You know, in the meantime, she's losing out on her education, getting more anxious. And so it wasn't until my dad, who's a GP, said, see a pediatric neurologist, get it tested out properly. And yeah, lo and behold, her sitting upside down on the couch, not being able to like sit still, the neurologist says she's got, moderate to severe ADHD.
Okay. Can I just stop? Because we hear a lot about ADHD. You are the ADHD advocate. So
Yes.
This is the world you inhabit and you, I assume, speaking up for people with ADHD.
Yes.
So how would you define ADHD?
So ADHD, it's really important actually to address the myths around it, up front in terms of it's not a mental health condition. It is a unique brain wiring similar to the way autism is a unique brain wiring. And it's not something that you grow out of. It's just the way your brain's wired. ADHD stands for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And I know there has been some confusion sometimes around me being an advocate for it as a disorder. And I have to make it really clear that is not what I'm an advocate for in terms of it being a disorder. I'm an advocate for it rather in being something that can be a superpower in the right circumstances when it's understood correctly and supported, when an ADHD is, their environment's redesigned to allow them to thrive, leveraging their strengths. Of course, that's not to say that it can't have negative consequences, because it very much can. If it's not addressed, it can have devastating consequences. It can have life-threatening, life-ending, unfortunately, consequences. A lot of people with ADHD, if it doesn't get treated, it can develop into other conditions, other, personality disorders even, depression, and can lead to high risk of suicide in that population, I'm afraid. And there are a lot of accidents too, because ADHD is that attention deficit, that mind wandering, that impulsivity can lead itself to a lot of accidents, injuries, trying to do too much. Maybe they're driving recklessly, not quite paying attention and having accidents. Yeah. So
I'm smiling, just thinking I'm on 9 points and I'm the slowest driver in the world. I just bored when I'm driving.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Is this a trait? Oh, yeah. I don't know. Just whenever I don't drive much. Whenever I go out in my car, there's some offence I'm committing.
Well,
and I'm extremely slow and potter about. But yeah.
Do you find it different? Like some ADHD, it's funny.
Boring.
Yeah, no two ADHDs are the same, right?
I'm not sure. I'm just saying. I'm no idea. Everyone tries to self-diagnose. I have no diagnosis, but Who knows?
Well, you've got some that will drive slowly as well because of, the anxiety is what, before I was medicated, I didn't even want to get in the car. Particularly if I had to park somewhere, go somewhere I didn't know, that would make me anxious. Because a lot of the time ADHD doesn't travel alone. It comes often with autism, comes often with dyspraxia. And I suspect I have dyspraxia. Like if you saw my writing, you would agree I do have it. But that sense of spatial awareness, I had that problem, still have that problem. So, not quite realizing where that corner is, where that, just misjudging and having those kind of small accidents, that kind of really does add to the anxiety. So what a lot of people don't understand, a lot of people that get diagnosed with anxiety, even depression, sometimes it is just untreated ADHD, so it's only addressing the symptoms. If they get, medication for anxiety or depression, it's not addressing the underlying cause of the anxiety or depression, which can be the untreated ADHD.
Right. Got a ton of questions. So when you said your father was a GP and have a look at it neurologically, so is there some kind of test? Is it, questions and answers, or is there a brain scan? You know, how do you find out if someone has ADHD?
Yeah, well, it all varies. Here in the UK, they've got the nice guidelines which set out, you know, what people or psychiatrists should do when they assess for ADHD. Under the DSM-5, which is this manual for the disorders, there's certain criteria that must be met in order to make a diagnosis.
Stop there, DSM-5.
DSM-5. The
What's that?
Diagnostic Statistical
Manual. Oh, it's not a test. I just think that's we
a-
as lawyers will look at that, and it's
DSM.
I think we call it DSM, and it's numbered because they've done it so many times.
Yeah, this is the 5th version.
Yeah, and but I think it's something like the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. We're in the area.
Weak
We're in the
working
area.
memory is another.
But anyway, it's a set of criteria, isn't it?
So
Largely.
ADHD's in
Yeah.
there, autism's in there, narcissism's in there. And so for ADHD, it must be present in at least 2 different settings.
Yeah.
And you can either have predominantly hyperactive or impulsive or inattentive or combined type, which I am, combined type. And we've talked
What
about,
would you be combined with then?
So
explain.
hyperactive,
Yeah.
I've got hyperactivity, impulsivity, and inattention, which is actually more distractibility, mind wandering, which, you know, makes for, you know, let's reframe this, which we do in ADHD coaching. It makes us very creative,
It's a
non-linear
bit of
thinkers.
fizz.
Yeah,
We
you know,
love
you're
that.
spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you spent maybe what 20, 25, 30 years as a lawyer?
Years. Well, yeah, as a qualified lawyer, I think.
Yeah.
I can't count. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Figures elude me.
But you're smashing it as a lawyer, weren't
Yeah.
you? You're a corporate lawyer.
Yeah, in Alan Overy.
You born in Australia.
Yep, I was born in Australia.
And then did you work in the UK and America? Tell me.
Yeah, I did my I got a summer clerkship at Cadere Brothers in New York. So I was still living in Australia at the time, but I got to spend 5-6 weeks, you know, as a lawyer in New York before I even properly qualified, which was amazing. And that's when I got the taste for working overseas as a lawyer. So when I got back to Sydney, I graduated in, what did I go into? Litigation. But what I didn't like about litigation was there was always a loser. I didn't like that, you know, it made me sad. So I had friends in banking, and also these friends were getting all these offers, you know, to go work in London. So I was thinking, wow, banking sounds good because everyone wins. Like, so we acted for the banks. And so obviously they're lending money to developers to create these amazing kind of hotels and developments, and, you know, it's building. They're partnering more than kind of adversarial.
Yeah, well, you're growing something, I suppose.
Yeah, you know, everyone wins. So it's like, I get to help
Throw the
people
money
win.
in the air.
Yeah, you know, everyone wins, and I get to work overseas. I really win, you know. And Alan Overy paid for me to come over to London, and I worked in global loans there. It was intense. For intense 2 years, and then I actually went back to Australia because it was a bit too intense for me, and I went in-house at Westpac in Australia, had my children, then came back to London in a very ADHD way, got a bit bored in Sydney, came back to London, worked for Westpac London in global derivative reform. Yeah, that was
Global
the last.
derivative
Oh,
reform.
yes, it
What
was
does that
riveting.
mean?
It was.
You must know. Yes, it's your job.
Well, this is where imposter syndrome kicks in, right?
Yeah.
Like, I knew the law. Derivatives, though,
Yeah.
like I don't quite know what this option is put. And people, the traders would try and show me, so this is how it works. They draw it out, and I'm like, draw it out because I don't know what you're saying from just talking to me. I can't picture it. And they're drawing it out, and I'm like, All I know is that you can't do that trade because, you know, I knew the law. The law made sense to me. I wanted to obviously make sure that the trades were done, you know, and compliant with Dodd-Frank and EMIR.
Oh, so you were dealing with the compliance.
Yeah, I was more, this was more, which I always wanted to avoid. For me, it just seemed so boring, you know, regulation.
Yeah.
And this was regulatory reform. But what I did enjoy was becoming the subject matter expert, not in the underlying derivatives, the law. No one else knew. I tried to hide that. And helping, you know, the traders, helping people close those deals. I really enjoyed being part of the deal, you know, and helping them. But yeah, I was always, you know, that fear which so many ADHDers have, that imposter syndrome of kind of being found out. Like, you know, don't ask me anything on the actual derivative side, although I did Bachelor of Commerce. I did a finance degree, But it just eluded me. And we did put some options, and I kind of remembered it enough to just kind of regurgitate it in the exam. But then it just went away, which happens to a lot of us ADHDs. When we're not authentically interested in something, it's really hard to retain.
Just thinking, no, I'm thinking through imposter syndrome, which I've never totally understood. I don't get that.
Interesting.
Because you were doing all of this, so you didn't have imposter syndrome, did you? You were just doing it. Don't you think it's the reverse? Don't you think you're just going out and doing whatever you want to do and not worrying whether you're an imposter or not? Does it really affect you?
This is what's interesting, because I remember if someone had have said to me that I had imposter syndrome, my first reaction would be, no, I don't, I'm fine. Because a lot of us do have that narrative and the impulsivity and our weak working memory, we kind of and we're now versus not now. So if I'm doing it, I'm doing it. I'm not going to think whether or not I can do it. I just have to do it. But there is this thing that we have that even though we're able to do all these things, it just doesn't it's not credit in the bank for us. We forget that we've even done it. So a lot of us, even though we've done the thing, we second guess ourselves. Because,
okay, I get it.
Yeah. So all these
Isn't that
achievements
something different though?
out of mind.
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
definitely say for me, I do stuff and then I'm just on to the next thing. I don't ever look back. I'm not bothered about any kind of gong or label or anything. It doesn't, I'm just more interested in the next thing.
Yeah, we are. We're not very good at celebrating our successes.
No, never do that.
It's like, okay, I really want this. I really want this thing. And everything's in the lead up to this thing. Then you get it. And it's like, I never really cared about this thing. But actually it was everything. Until you get it, and then it doesn't matter anymore.
But isn't that just normal about wanting to just improve things and get better?
Okay, I get this a lot in terms of ADHD. Doesn't everyone get bored? Doesn't everyone, all the symptoms? Yes, you're right. Everyone does feel these things. But for us ADHDers, it's the severity, it's the frequency, and the impact.
Yeah.
Because it's so much more.
Yeah, because you could say that about any mental health issue, couldn't you? You could say, yeah, we all feel sad sometimes, and we do. Oh, I'm depressed. So it's quite different to when you see someone's really depressed and they just can't even get out of bed. That's a very different thing, but we'll still use that term.
And that's a really good analogy. It's exactly, it's the same. And unfortunately for an ADHD, because, if they haven't been diagnosed, they don't know any different. So the problem is us ADHDers, you're looking around the neurotypicals and I should be able to do these things. Why is it so much harder for me? But but I should be able to do these things. And that's the problem, is because certain things, particularly if we're not interested, because the fuel for an ADHD is authentic interest. So if we're not authentically interested in something, it's like wading through mud. Or some ADHDs, some of my clients describe it as like treacle. It's just like, it's so hard to get through. The car just doesn't start without that fuel. And, Dr. Hallowell, he's a psychiatrist. He's one of the leading experts in the US on ADHD. Dr. Hallowell, he's written some great books on ADHD, the latest ADHD 2.0, which is really, I very much recommend that if you want to learn more about ADHD, the ADHD brain. He talks about the Ferrari brain, bicycle brakes. ADHD is having Ferrari brains and bicycle brakes.
Yeah.
So in terms
we talked about this, and I talked about my phrase when my children were young, but I've just used it generally to people, is that you can't be a Ferrari with flat tires. And that's just a phrase I use. I'd never heard of anything about bicycle brakes. I just imagine the Ferrari there, but unless the tires are pumped up, and it's just something that I just feel I've always known about in my upbringing.
Which is amazing.
That as a family with my brothers, now we're just all buzzing. We're so crazy. Everyone talked at once. And
more times, right?
Yeah, but the basic stuff was just never happened. I mean, I actually did my homework. I had a kitchen table and there was a space that big. I just put something down because it was so chaotic and crazy in my house. And so just put that, and I would sit and do my homework in this tiny little space that sort of cleared it out. I remember doing domestic science at school, and what they called it now, and the teacher said something something about cleaning the pans. And
cleaning.
Oh, we don't really do that at home. Some people don't. I don't think we even ever clean our pans. It's like, maybe other families are different to us. But anyway, I digress.
No, that's important. No, what you've just said there, because there's a lot of and I'm not speaking for your family or you, but for a lot of ADHDs, there's a lot of guilt and shame. Because
Never heard of it when I was young.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
I don't even know what was going on in my family, but it was very busy and it was a lot of fun. I have no problems with it. It just, yeah.
It's
And then
not important, not interesting.
well, with my own children, I've never nagged them to do homework because I just thought I was so far ahead of the game by giving them a space to sit and do their homework. That just, in my house, I just usually got up in the morning and did it sometimes on the way to school where there was no
Last
culture
minute?
of homework.
Yeah. It's the only way
But
to
I didn't
do
have
things.
a problem. I was really clever, so it didn't matter.
And a lot of ADHDs are lucky enough to be like that.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you that when they come, when they've been diagnosed and they come to coaching, then all of a sudden it's, wow, if I actually had have tried, whoa, if I had known I had ADHD and I had that help, kind of what I would be doing now, how much easier it would have been. But so many, the ADHDs that very much like dominate the legal industry.
Well, let's face it. As a barrister,
Yeah.
you get your brief the night before. It's absolutely no
perfect.
problem. I can go through 1,000 pages
That's it.
for do the case. I'll never remember it until someone comes back. It's a kind of barrister brain. It's very useful.
Very ADHD.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
I thought I'd
certainly
learned
judges have got it too. Yeah. I mean, it just lends itself. The law absolutely lends itself to ADHD. You never have to fear being bored. Like, for instance, like if you work in a law firm, I remember having my BlackBerry. I remember the day I got my BlackBerry and I was so happy because then I had 2 emails to look at. When I kind of did my personal at home, I'd have my work one. Oh, and I just work. I'm workaholic type.
But do you think this is why, so for Family Law Cover, it's great that I have, 50 people that we're looking after it just on my phone.
Yes.
Just can deal with it in minutes.
That's the thing, technology.
What have I set up here?
This is the problem, is that it's much harder to get out of your own way now and apply the brakes. Remember we talked about Ferrari brain, bicycle brakes.
Yeah.
This is the thing. And now that we've got everything's accessible and like respond now, there's no excuse to not respond. So, it's really hard for us to apply.
It could drive an ADHD person too far because it's hard to stop, isn't it? We've got the world and we can find out about anything. I keep saying we, but there's just, it's so exciting. But to switch off is I certainly find hard.
Well,
I mean, I have someone I'm speaking to about. She said, "Oh, we could do this meditation thing. It's 3 hours." I'm like,
oh God.
Yeah. Try. I mean, that's a massive challenge. Meditate. Can you meditate?
Meditation. I couldn't meditate until I took medication. I know that sounds like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But literally, I could not meditate until I got ADHD medication, which was transformational for me. ADHD medication changed my life.
I want to hear about that, but I also want to hear about. We were talking earlier about. So it's neurodiversity. How do you work out? You said that there is a manual and you go through. So is it reported, or do people does the brain look different? Do you know?
They're still doing a lot of research. They're still trying to work out, the genes responsible. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's quite complex. Mm. They have noticed there are some kind of structural things, I believe, and I know that's a lot more is going on in America in terms of that brain scanning, and I think it's EMDR, watching the eye movement. When there's certain kind of stimulus, they can kind of tell. But generally, what it is that you've got, like, the psychiatrist asks for these forms to be filled in. Remember, I talked about it's got to be present. Symptoms have to be present in at least 2 settings. Yeah. So usually, for instance, for a kid, that would be at school. So teachers would be asked to fill out this form in terms of the different symptoms they're observing, and then at home. Now, the problem with this is that, particularly with the girls that mask, they've got no problems at school. The teachers are like, I don't see any of these issues. They're like an angel. Yeah. But at home, they're like the devil. And the parents are like, oh my God. And the problem is that it's then the poor parents kind of being cast as well, it's actually obviously because you're a bad parent, that's why they're acting like that, because they're fine for us at school. But the reason for that is they're masking because they're horrified of getting into trouble in front of their peers, not belonging. They put everything, and a lot of same thing with
autism, isn't it? With girls just not recognised and becoming more recognized.
It's exhausting for them.
Yeah.
It is absolutely exhausting to mask all day. And that's why the parents see, you know, when they get home, they unleash, you know, and then the parents cop it. It's like walking on eggshells. It's really, really difficult for these kids. And that's why it's important, you know, that awareness is there, that teachers understand what's going on, that there's accommodations, you know, made, and that, you know, it's acceptable. And luckily now there is a bit more awareness and acceptance of neurodiversity. And
It's huge,
you know?
now, isn't it? But I think people are, it's as I say, really, I feel that the brain is the new frontier. I mean, we would all talk about sending rockets here and there. To me, that's just very simple, basic stuff. We just don't know what's going on in our heads, and we need to find out more. And I think that this is the next 50 years is going to be about what's, you know, what is going on. You know, psychiatrists will prescribe things. They don't really know how that medication works. It's trial and error.
Oh, completely. Yeah. My dad's a GP as well, and he used to make fun of psychiatrists, you know, like wacky, because it's not an exact science. And actually, when I thought I had ADHD, the psychiatrist I saw, because a lot of psychiatrists, you know, the level of ADHD knowledge is not equal out there, unfortunately. You've got to make sure that if you do want to get diagnosed correctly, you know, it's got to be by a psychiatrist that really gets it, because ADHD, I mean, it's getting better, but they don't teach, you know, what they say, for instance, what they teach us in an ADHD, like certified ADHD coaching course about ADHD. The psychiatrists don't get that same, you know, level of training.
So we talked about this arose when your daughter was diagnosed.
Yes.
And did that take some time?
Gosh, yes, because, you know, again, we were told by, you know, an expert occupational therapist at her school, it wasn't ADHD. We were told it's not, it's sensory processing disorder.
Yeah.
So we were doing all these exercises, sensory
Yeah.
diet, bouncing her on a ball, you know, in the meantime, it was driving me mental, for one, but also for her, like, she was having fun bouncing on a ball, but as soon as you asked her to do something or read a book or do any homework, she was throwing tables because she couldn't concentrate, and that was making her very anxious, and she thought she was dumb. So that she lost about 2 years of schooling. And then obviously we're trying out the medication, which, you know, she was 5. So to be told as a parent, your child needs to take medication.
This is a big one, isn't it?
Horrifying.
So I'm assuming that there are people who, well, do you find different parents? You know, one would be really anti-medication. Is that an issue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly comes up in the work I do.
Oh gosh,
And I feel that people weaponize it, I'm going to be honest, in cases where, you know, parents have separated and suddenly a parent is saying, I don't agree to this. And
it's really sad.
it is, I think it's more than sad. It's just appalling, because they might have a genuine view, or they might not.
Yeah.
And it's not helpful. But I do see that in quite a few cases.
It is.
Yeah. And so what are your thoughts about medication? Because you've got that experience.
Again, everyone's different. For some people, it doesn't work. You know, some people don't react very well to it.
Yeah.
But others, and I've obviously, because I've been coaching for nearly 7 years, and personally having taken it myself, and from my daughter, the change it made for her, absolutely transformational.
It was observable for you.
Oh God!
Tell me. I mean, what was the change?
I remember for me when I first took it, I remember saying, "Oh my gosh, everything's standing still for me." I could see corners of tables like.
When you took it,
when I took
it. And when was that? Was that after?
So I was 38 when I got I got diagnosed with ADHD.
So tell me about how it changed you.
Oh wow, everything. Everything. So as I said, everything stood still for me. I remember looking outside at a tree. It's like I can see a leaf. I can actually, because I was so like distractible.
Okay.
You know, everything took my attention.
Everything was moving.
Yeah, I was taking everything in. Everything took my attention. I couldn't see detail. Like I just missed all the and I missed all the corners of tables. I used to walk into every corner of it. I just walk into tables. I had bruises all over myself growing up. Brushed my teeth, and because I'm thinking about something else or in a rush, boom, hurt my gum because I've just gone because I wasn't present. I wasn't present.
Yeah.
And actually, as a parent with kids with ADHD, that's when it really, really impacted me, not being able to be present for my child as well. If they're talking about something not interesting, or my brain's like, I'm worried I haven't done that thing of work. it's so hard to be present, and that obviously does not make you feel good that you're not there. And I didn't know why. So you feel like this awful, selfish parent. Why am I not able to listen to my child and pay all the attention and play tea parties and do these things that other mothers can do, you know? And
just an extra level of guilt.
oh God, yes, you know. And why? And then forgetting, like I remember once taking my child, I thought that the party started at a particular time, but I'd gotten the time from my calendar as the end time, but I thought I told myself it was the start time. I just had it in my head it was the start time. So I fronted up to the party at the end of it with the child, you know, my child with the present, all the kids coming out. Oh God, I'm so sorry. You know, you just spend, it's really hard, you know, because of the executive function challenges and overwhelm. You then add children to the mix, and having to do that for them, that's the tipping point. And that's why so many women with ADHD get diagnosed after they've had kids, like later in life.
Yeah, then people see it.
Oh God, because you can't do it anymore. Like I was, what was the trigger for me? I was bringing my kids home from swimming, and I don't know, I was just so, you know, you're overwhelmed all the time and really struggle to regulate yourself. You're always reacting to their noise and their shouting. And I opened a heavy BMW car door into my face. And then I was like literally bleeding with my 3 kids. And I was like, I can't do this anymore, you know? And that's when I went and got diagnosed. But the psychiatrist was, aren't you a lawyer? Didn't you do law? And then I'm thinking, oh God, how embarrassing. Maybe I'm just crap. Yeah, I'm just crap. I must be crap. Because, you know, obviously he thinks that, you know, I was a lawyer. So
but it makes sense to me that, because law is very regulated, so wouldn't it help to go into a place where everything is in the same place? Because if you go into something where everything's moving, that's going to double the movement. This is just a very amateur view. I think working in something that's very structured is great. For me, I was in a sport. We only did the same movement. We did it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. So I think rowing is great for people with some concentration issues, because you just literally go, you're just doing that one movement and you're doing it to this ridiculously high technical level. So as I say, I just think that for me, sorry,
the body double.
Yeah, you're over someone else. Yeah, exactly. So you have to match their movement completely. Exactly. Just wondering whether that would be a good thing.
Yeah, on what you're saying.
And coaching rowing, so coaching people, see them become, and you have to be very disciplined. I mean, so incredibly disciplined. It's, you know, in the boat. And when I was a junior, you would get in and then you might train for 2.5 hours. Our coach said you weren't allowed to talk, so that was it. You were in the boat, can't talk, boom, and doing the same movement. That could be quite soothing, or maybe not.
No, you're right. It's again, and what we do in coaching, it's always, how do we get you out of your own way? How do we remove your choice? And so what you're talking about.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Because give us choice. Like you see it with the ADHD is at school. By
the way, I can't go shopping. By the way, I can't go into a bit. So it's just too much. A little shop, if it was closed, that would, my perfect shopping would be going in, close it down. I'd go in and potter about a small shop with just a few things. Just give me 5, maybe even 3 options. Or a restaurant. Why don't they just have 3 options? Why have these big menus?
Yes,
I give it to someone else to make my decisions.
That's it.
You know what I like.
Yeah, because overwhelm. As ADHD we struggle with decision making because, and often we just see so many more, you know, options. You know, like I said, what I was saying in terms of taking everything in. You know, you have to get, and you know, there's this fear of missing out as well. What if I make the wrong decision?
But all these things are part of modern life anyway. So I can talk about this, and it could be just perfectly usual.
Oh, no.
No.
No, not really. And this is the thing, and this is why it's so important to get the diagnosis, is because, ADHDs that don't, you know, if they've got ADHD and don't realize they have it, your expectations, you know, you're going to be expecting, well, no, but, you know, everyone does this and I should be, and you're shooting all over yourself. And the more you do that, what's going to happen to your self-talk? What are you saying to yourself every time you're not hitting that?
I'm just saying I'm great because I'm doing loads of stuff.
I love it. Yeah, but not all ADHDs go that way. A lot of like the self-talk of ADHDs, because I've got the privilege of being in their heads as an ADHD coach. Some of the talk is brutal, like particularly the young ones. It's brutal, particularly the ones that are really kind.
How about timekeeping? Is that tough?
Oh God,
yeah.
Yeah, timekeeping. We're
And then
time
people
blind.
think you're being rude. We just
I
like,
know.
no,
Well,
just,
yeah. And actually, but that's interesting too, because some ADHD is the ones that are really rejection sensitive. Like if someone's late for them, right? Like they take it really personally because they take it as a personal, like my time obviously doesn't matter as much as yours until you obviously don't think very much of me, because ADHDers will catastrophize. We've got a negativity bias. So it'll be the negative version every time.
which everyone does, by the way.
Oh, not-
everyone, no,
not to the extent.
not to the extent.
Yeah.
Because extent. This is what I'm hearing.
Oh,
it's the
it's
extent of it.
just, and well, with an ADHD, ADHDs have a negativity bias in our brains. So, and the more, because remember, what our ADHD brain needs is stimulation, right? Constantly. Constant stimulation. So it's like the Ferrari brain burning the fuel really quickly.
And is there a part of the brain?
That's
different.
There's a few different things
this
going
is what
on.
Fascinates me. Yeah.
I'm not good at the neuroscience. So
Yeah.
the neuroscience, I know it should interest me.
Yeah.
And I come from a family of doctors. My dad's a
But you're
GP.
interested in the effect.
I'm just, interested. Like, I've always been that way, which is funny. I was going to do medicine, but I did law instead. It's more about the people and the connection and seeing them and, their dreams and aspirations and what they're capable of. And being able to then see through that ADHD lens to be able to kind of maybe reframe, shift mindsets, and get them to set themselves up in a situation where they can get out of their own way and realize their dreams. That's kind of what I'm about. The neuroscience is, for me, like by the by.
Well, you're coaching,
but it is
aren't you? You're advocating.
Yeah.
So, just want to take you back to when. So your daughter was diagnosed. She had medication, and did you see how did that change her life?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Eva, I had my first ever conversation with my daughter, age 5.5, because for the first time she was present. See, this is the thing with ADHD. It's really difficult to be present, to be in our bodies. And that's why so many ADHDers do, a lot of sport, because that's the way they can actually be present in their bodies and silence the ever-ending noise.
Well, it's easy. It was the first time I could sleep after I.
Yeah, you need
did.
to.
I always did a huge amount of sport from like 2 onwards: ice skating, water skiing, swimming.
There's your
squash,
medication.
Rowing. Well, it's just part of our family. We all did it. So
because ADHD is genetic. It's and that's another thing that is really quite powerful for ADHDers. Once they realize they've got it, you look back. Because it's intergenerational, right? So the impact, it explains so much. And particularly, it's really been able to heal relationships as well between, mothers and daughters and grandparents. And to be able to then go look through that lens and go, that's why they do that, as opposed to they're just this mean, selfish, it's like, oh, that was hard for them. They were trying, and so there's that ability to reconcile, because you can see through that lens, because there is very much an intergenerational impact.
Did you start your work after you were diagnosed, or was it after your daughter? Because you've been doing this for 7 years, haven't you?
Yeah. So I'm now 46. So yeah. So I was always interested in coaching. I always wanted to be, before I got into law, I wanted to be a therapist, but with my dad, he's Asian, doctor or lawyer. And I just missed out on medicine because I would have been a psychiatrist. But I didn't want to cut anyone up. And apparently to do medicine, you have to do all that. So I'm so glad I didn't get into medicine. And the next one was law. I hadn't thought about doing law before, but that's what I got into, and that's what I did. And that was the type of ADHD that I have. I used to call myself automatic pilot person. I just did things,
But also you've got all that energy, haven't you? So I
like to do things.
If you think about it, you're doing more, so you're going to be more successful probably. That's how I'd see it. Is that fair?
Well, okay.
You're going to do well because you kind of, as long as you control a bit of it. Give you things, get through them. I don't know.
Yeah, the scatter kind of approach, which again, for entrepreneurs, right, that kind of approach, I'm just going to give it a go. That obviously, can pay off massively. But on the other hand, and depending on, your intellect, right, your opportunities, the people you have around you, your environment situation, it can sometimes go very wrong. you know, because where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're here, there, everywhere, sometimes it can be very hard to like complete and then have that satisfaction of, oh yes, I've done that. Usually most ADHDers, when they come to coaching, one of their biggest kind of issues is, I just can't complete anything, or I can't get started, or I've got all these unfinished projects. And that just kind of then overwhelms them even more and reinforces that negative narrative of, I'm hopeless, can't do anything.
Well, do you think, I feel sometimes I'm very annoying. And sometimes I say things and people think I'm being rude, and I'm really not. So I use this phrase. People come to Family Law Cafe will hear it from me, and I'll say, "I'm going to be honest with you."
Yeah, no,
I am very honest,
Yeah.
and I think that's a
love
great
that.
quality, because then I can say, "This is what's going to happen in court." So, and so I kind of found my little place here.
Yeah.
But certainly, yeah, sometimes people think I'm like, no, it's just how I talk.
It's hard. You're right. No, honestly,
I can really annoy people.
well, and because you care, you know,
I'm really straightforward too, and sometimes people think maybe I'm joking, and I'm happy anyway and optimistic, so it can lead to confusions. I don't know.
No, what you're talking about is communication and our delivery. You know, the substance of what we have to say quite often can get lost in our delivery. You know, yeah, you're right. There is sometimes we're too honest or too blunt.
Too blunt,
you know,
say it.
But it's us. We're just, you know, if you've got honesty as a signature strength, right? And that's why in coaching, it'd be great. We should do your signature strengths. We need to know what I bet you got honesty, kindness, love of learning, judgment. Let's find out.
That sounds just like me.
Yeah, fairness.
Certainly fairness.
Yeah,
I just want to work for people that just don't get a break, and it's just compulsive. If people are being treated badly, I just go in there, and I'm very persistent.
Yeah, perseverance maybe.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, I've got perseverance, strength as well.
Yeah, I think it's all good things.
And I love that, but that's the, you know, in terms of like the strengths-based approach, which is the only approach. If we want to thrive with ADHD, got to take a strengths-based approach. And yeah, you naturally have that, and ADHDs that do have that, they're the ones that can navigate it a lot more successfully, because some of them are unapologetic. Well, you know, maybe privately not so unapologetic, but unapologetically themselves when it comes to, well, look, this kind of thing, this is not what I do, right? If they're not interested in it, they don't talk about it as like not being good at it. They're just not interested. That's not my bag, you know.
Yeah.
I
just use the phrase, "This isn't my thing."
Yeah. See,
it's not my thing.
You're doing it.
I just do what I want to do.
Yeah, you've got some really good innate kind of qualities there that help, if you do have ADHD, that have helped you navigate it, because these are all the things that we work on in coaching, because unfortunately there are a lot of ADHDs that don't have that type of optimism.
Well, I think you've got to work really hard. Really hard.
Yes.
I can't say things haven't always gone well.
Oh God,
me.
no.
But
that might be
I see the only way is going forward. If it goes badly, what choice have you got going forward? So just work incredibly hard on it.
That's good. Yeah, do what you can within your control. But remember we talked about the negativity bias and the ADHD brain. Some ADHD the thing is, the more you kind of go to the negative, the more the amygdala, the connection strengthens, it becomes automatic. It's very hard to like get out of that pattern, you know. And so like in coaching, for instance, you know, we've got to like do a lot of mindset shift and reframing and affirmations and building the evidence. And, you know, you've got to really try and reprogram and kind of get into rituals every morning where you're resetting, you know, like gratitude is fantastic, for instance. Starting the day off, trying to shift your focus to what you're grateful for has been really impactful for a lot of ADHDs that are naturally just, you know, negative, because it's so overwhelming, crippling for some with the ADHDs. Because remember, it's not in the DSM-5 yet, but the emotional regulation piece, dysregulation piece of ADHD is massive. Like that is, I would say, the most crippling aspect of ADHD is that inability to regulate the intense moods.
Which comes in a lot of my cases with children who and it's not really known whether, because they're children, they're developing and they're going through maybe a parental separation and, you know, parents are dealing with that, and then they themselves can become dysregulated. It's just incredibly tough. And so whether it is a health condition or it's temporary. I don't know, but
there's usually,
I do see it.
yeah, there's usually, I mean, obviously things will, yeah, I mean, if you've got ADHD, so you're already rejection sensitive, you're already, you know, a lot of them are very self-conscious as well, just want to fit in. So if their parents are, you know, at war or they need to be supervised, already they're like, you know, not belonging, they're different, they're somehow deficient. And that's going to be an issue in terms of, you know, being able to just, you know, be happy and confident, because ADHDs are really, they're pretty brutal to themselves. Like the standards we set ourselves are really high. We expect so much of ourselves. And when we kind of hit the mark, we're pretty punishing. Unless you're, well, the type of ADHD I am, forgetful fairy, like, oh God, that was really, oh my God. And then turn the corner, look at something, oh, an opportunity, or someone said something great, and you're like, oh yeah. And then you forget all the bad stuff. And then,
but do you think doing because you're an advocate, so you do coaching,
Yeah.
and this is what you do all of the time. You're doing it for 8 years,
yeah,
and you have
non-stop.
other people that you provide coaching. So people are coming to you, and do you work as a coach with them, or what do you provide?
Yeah, I mean, I love one-to-one coaching, and I'm, you know, really privileged to kind of be in the brains and thought processes of like some like diverse individuals and across all backgrounds, you know, artists, fashion designers, film directors, you know, Olympians, CEOs of financial institutions, partners of law firms, with ADHD, sometimes ADHD and autism, and just like being able to hear kind of the way they think, what's getting in their way, kind of hearing the types of things that they do to kind of navigate their challenges. I mean, like a lot of ADHD is the way that some people describe the coaching and learning is you've kind of got this puzzle, and then once you've got those pieces and you can see the picture, ADHDs go, okay, that's what that looks like. They put it in their bag. You know, they've got these kind of pictures that are complete, and whenever they need them, that's it. They know exactly kind of what to do. They can reprogram. Like some of my ADHDs, they're so coachable. It's crazy. Like once they see it, that's it. They're
Do you
good
think
now.
that coaching is, because I'm a big fan of coaching,
Yeah.
well, I've set up Family Law Cafe, and I think that, you know, I've been coached in sport. I think I like to coach people through their divorce and finances, their children matters, tell them where they're going to go, set goals.
Yes.
That's kind of, you know, a big part of what we do.
That makes a big difference.
Do you think that ADHD people are eminently coachable, or are some of them that it doesn't work for them?
No, ADHD coaching, it's so good for ADHDers because we don't like being told what to do, for one. So it's got to be our idea.
So you're
our idea.
you're being helped to make your choice.
Yeah, so we honor the ADHD, they are the expert in their own life. So ADHD is they know what to do, but they don't do what they know. It's really annoying. We get annoyed by it ourselves, right?
Yeah.
You know, you read something or you come across something, oh my God, that's what I need to do. And then when it comes to actually doing it, you don't do it, right? Like, and that is even more difficult for us because we know better. And a lot of, you know, so the smarter you are as well, right, you're going to hold yourself up to an even higher standard. So do you see how the negative self-talk, that kind of, we are quite brutal to ourselves because we should do better given what we know and given things that we can
Why is
do.
it not all working?
Yeah, you know, like, but I can do these really amazing...
Do you ever help them talking to, say, their partners who might not understand?
Definitely.
Because that must be a big area.
Yeah, and it is such a big part of it. You know, and what I found very early on, I can coach an ADHDer to better understand their brain, accept their needs. Like, okay, yeah, this is just a thing that is going to drain me. And then be able to communicate to their partner or their employer, right? This is what happens when this happens, and this is what I'll need in order to do this thing or in order to be able to, you know, cope. Now, if that employer or, you know, partner, if they don't get it, what I started seeing early on was that the person that I coached became now even more frustrated because they had accepted their needs. They knew what they needed to, you know, be able to do what the thing that's maybe been not possible for them to do. But then the partner is not facilitating, not understanding, or the employer. And then that just then causes them, you can imagine, right, to disengage either from the job or from that partner, from that marriage, because with an ADHD, if there's no point, there's no point.
Yeah.
We just You know, yeah, okay, well, there's no point. And so we disengage because it's just it's just too painful to try, you know. And so it's really important that training component, that the other person, whether it's in a marriage or, you know, employee, employer, we've got to have that training as well as the coaching. Otherwise, it can go worse than before because the person being coached knows better now.
Because they've got that knowledge.
Yeah.
We're going to have to wrap up. I know that you are the ADHD advocate. Where do people find you?
So yes, our website, www.theadhdadvocate.com, and we've got like a huge range of YouTube videos, webinars we've done. We've been on a few podcasts as well, like You're Wrong About ADHD being one of them. And on the Life Coach directory, we do the ADHD Explainer video. So, you know, you can have a listen on the Life Coach directory about, you know, what it is we do as ADHD coaches. So, yeah, get in touch. Would love to help you.
Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I know we could just chat all night. Yes. It's getting dark, so we have to stop. But yeah, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
All power to you.
Thank you.